Praise the Lord. We're going to go to the book of Hebrews, chapter 4, the last 3 verses, and especially the last verse. So there's 3 verses, 14, 15, and 16 in the 4th chapter. Seeing then that we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession. For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. And I've been asking the question, because it's fascinating to me that we are never told to ask for grace. I'm not saying that it's wrong to ask for grace, because I think the Lord honors that, because He gives grace to the humble, but there's also some personal responsibility, and we need to come boldly to the throne of grace. Is it working okay?
Gail's having some trouble hearing, so we're just checking it out.
Oh, okay. But we are to come boldly, without reservation, honestly and openly, and it also has a connotation of speaking truth, but also speaking the reality of our situations. And when we do that, we obtain mercy and find grace and to help. And I read some of the commentaries, and they talk about, this is help in time of need or in a season of need, but it's like they miss the fact that the word help literally means ropes or cables or straps in it so that we can tie it to us. But I want to go back up to verse 15 for a little bit. For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses. The King James says that it is touched by the feelings of our infirmities. In the Greek, this is a word, sympathio, and it means to suffer with, to emphasize, sympathize to the extent of entering into our experience and feeling what we're feeling the heartache himself. The infirmities and weaknesses are the things which undermine our resistance to temptation morally, physically, spiritually, and increasing the difficulty of resisting sin. So Jesus is there to help us when we have the weaknesses and the attacks which undermine our resistance and the temptations which make it difficult to resist sin, that Jesus is right there with us. But it means to sympathize with our weaknesses means to suffer with, to come to and to actually feel what we're feeling, and to give us Himself and to share those things with us. And I was pretty amazed, because I've been asking, why is grace the only thing that we are told to come to the throne and receive? And it's not just grace, it's mercy. And I'm not sure I understand all this, so I looked up what the meaning in the Strong's Concordance of the word mercy, and it meant compassion. So we can receive compassion. So I looked in the big old Noah Webster dictionary that I have. What does compassion mean? The C-O-M in compassion means with. And the passus is from another word it's a different derivative of it, but it's from this word that means to suffer. To have sympathy, kindness, and tenderness. So mercy is a quality of the Spirit, not only ours, but with the Lord. So if we're going to have compassion, guess what it means? It means to enter in feeling what somebody else is feeling, and being able to sympathize and to help carry their burden. So we come to the throne of grace, which is so that we can find the mercy, the compassion to share with other people. And then we find grace, which is a supernatural enablement of God's favor and influence with the inner power to make changes in our spirit. That's what grace does for us. It's a supernatural enablement from God's favor and influence, but with an inner or its own power to make changes so it's sufficient for our spirit. And then it enables a meekness, a humility, a patience, faith, thankfulness, forgiveness, contentment, and a rest for our spirit when we're walking in grace. When we're walking in grace. So we can go there and obtain mercy or compassion. We can have the Lord's compassion because He wants to share our burdens, share our struggles. That's why He said, take my yoke upon you. Do these things. But there's another aspect of this verse that I've never seen before. The first song that Pam played was Let's Come Down to the River. Come on down. You know, when it says, let us therefore come boldly, it doesn't say go. Most of the time, if you tell people and you're inviting them to your place, you don't say, go to my house. You say, come to my house. Because it's personal. That's what the Lord is saying to us. Come to my house. Come to my throne. I'll be there waiting for you. With mercy, with compassion. Not only for what you're going through, but I want you to be able to take it with you so that you will have a greater compassion for other people. And we can come to the throne with full assurance because we have a legal right as sons and daughters of the Most High God, and we're always welcome. He didn't say go to the throne of grace. It's a personal invitation. Come boldly to my throne. Come to the throne of grace. It's personal. Come to me, all you are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Jesus makes it personal. Come to me. Come to the throne of grace. Obtain mercy. Find grace. Because when we have mercy and compassion, grace is the next step. So we don't tell others to go away, go to this place. When you want to invite them over to your place, you say, come to my house. And Jesus says over and over again, come unto me. But to find mercy means that He wants to share in our personal needs. Or if you want to look at it another way, He wants to share in our personal mess, and our insecurities, and our doubts, and our frustrations. Because He says, look, I've been there. I was tempted in all points. It means that He can understand what we're going through and wants to bear those along with us. I've been, I don't know how to say it, righteously selfish or selfishly righteous, wanting to understand grace and get grace and walk in grace and allow grace, His grace, to be a part of my life. But without his mercy, without his compassion, without him being a part of what I'm struggling with. Because and it just reminded me of so many scriptures where Paul says that we partake of the sufferings of Christ. I mean, it's like, okay, how do I interpret that? Well, Christ went through things and we're going to go through things. But it's like, to me, that's an incomplete understanding of that verse. So what are the sufferings of Christ? I don't want to be crucified. I don't want to go that far, and I think we've missed some of it because the sufferings, how does Christ has already suffered and died. We know that. So what are the sufferings of Christ? The sufferings of Christ might also be when he takes our burdens and enters into our suffering, because he can carry it better than we can. So the sufferings of Christ today are the sufferings that we're feeling. And that's his mercy that he wants to enter in and share those, lighten that load for us. I don't know, that just enlightened me in so many ways that I'm not even sure that I can explain them, but to understand that when we come to the throne, we're going to obtain mercy, which is his compassion, which is the same. Compassion is a Latin word, which means to enter into the suffering, and sympathize with our weakness or touched with the feelings of our infirmities is one word in the Greek, the sunpathio, which means sun is enter with and suffering. So Jesus wants to enter into our frustrations and our sufferings because he's already known about them and he wants to help us go through it. And then he wants us to be able to strap grace to us and get the victory. But he wants us to know that he's there with us. He wants the chance to share and the opportunity to share in our weaknesses, in our infirmities, the things that want to distract us, lead us astray, the things we struggle with. I find myself still struggling with a lot of things. But then he wants to have grace to change us, to bring those changes, because grace is sufficient. That's why I said I think I was trying to be righteous and do what was right, but I wasn't allowing Christ himself to share my burdens. But I was just relying on his grace to change me when he really wanted to be a part of my life and share in everything that I go through. That's what this mercy and sharing, touched with our infirmities, sympathizing with our weakness, he wants to be a part of what we go through. That's why he died on the cross, not only for salvation, but it's so he could share with everything that we go through. That's his mercy, his compassion. It literally means to enter into the suffering, to feel what we're feeling, and to share and lighten that burden. So I think we need to allow him to share in our weaknesses and for all the things that we're trying to overcome. But most of the time, if you're like me, you try to overcome them on your own without letting him share and carry that burden with you. So when it says come boldly, it's a personal invitation from Christ to come. Let him share in all the frustrations at work, frustrations with people, all the things that try to distract us from serving the Lord. He says, come. I want to share those with you. And I'll give you the grace. You can strap it to you. That's your responsibility to strap it to us, but I'll give it. I'll make sure that you have plenty of it because you're coming to get it. And he gives grace to the humble. So when we humble ourselves, we're acknowledging that we need him. We need him because he wants to share those burdens and then give us the grace and have us acquire the grace we need to overcome. I hope this is making sense to other people because it really hit me that I've been ignoring the fact that Christ wanted to be there with me. To obtain that mercy, to have him enter into my feelings, my disappointments, my sorrows, my sufferings. He wanted to share those with me. And I'm not sure how well I allowed him to. Trying to get independent and want to do things on our own. I wanted to know about grace. I wanted to walk in grace. I wanted to have the grace. But I can't have the grace without having him also. And allowing him to be a part. So when we come, even just that word, come. Come here. Come to me. That personal invitation of Christ. Come boldly. I've given you the permission. I've given you the right to come boldly to my throne. The throne of grace. That I can share with you. But I'll also give you grace to help you live. But I was neglecting Christ and the fact that he wanted to share in my weaknesses and enter into those. That's the sufferings of Christ for today, in my opinion. I just see that as one of the ways when Paul wrote about that we partake of the sufferings of Christ. We partake of his sufferings and some of the things that he went through because he's also partaking in ours. He's already paid the price for our sins. Now his suffering is sharing our suffering and our frustrations if we allow him to. He says, come. That's what I have to say today.